Hello, hello, my shining stars. How are you tonight? I hope you had a wonderful Sunday. We're back at the reading corner to pick up where we left off on Alice in Wonderland. And got some new nails, kind of Alice-like. They remind me of her dress, they're blue. Kind of fancy. Okay, so let's maybe a little candle lit tonight. And let's get back to Alice's adventures in Wonderland. Get myself situated. And maybe some taps before we start. Spine taps. Hello, spine taps. Lovely gold embossing set. Alright, I believe we are on chapter 3, and pick up where we left off. Alice was swimming in a pool of her own tears from when she was big, and she met a mouse and promptly had offended him by talking about cats and dogs, especially her cat Dinah, who we know she loves. And then the pool of tears, they were swimming, and it was getting too crowded. So they decided to swim to shore, I believe. So sorry, but that's where we were. So let's read the last part of that. It was high time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with the birds and animals that had fallen into it. There was a duck and a dodo, a lory and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way, and the whole party swam to the shore. Chapter 3. A caucus race and a long tail. They were indeed a queer-looking party that assembled on the bank. The birds with draggled feathers, the animals with their fur clinging close to them, all dripping wet, cross, and uncomfortable. The first question, of course, was how to get dry again. They had a consultation about this, and after a few minutes, it seemed quite natural to Alice to find herself talking familiarly with them, as if she had known them all her life. Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the Lhari, who at last, okay. Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the Lhari, who at last turned sulky and would say, "I'm older than you and must know better." And this Alice would not allow without knowing how old it was, and as the Lhari positively refused to tell its age, there was no more to be said. At last, the mouse, who seemed to be a person of some authority among them, called out, "Sit down, all of you, and listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough." They all sat down at once in a large ring, with the mouse in the middle. Alice kept her eyes anxiously fixed on it, for she felt she would catch a bad cold if she did not get dry very soon. said the mouse with an important air. Are you all ready? This is the driest thing I know. Silence all around, if you please. William the Conqueror, whose cause was favored by the Pope, was soon submitted to by the English, who wanted leaders, and had been of late March accustomed to usurpation and conquest. Usurpation? Is that how I say that? Usurpation and conquest. Apologize if I said that wrong. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria. Ugh, said the Lorry with a shiver. And there's the picture. The mouse telling the driest thing he knows. I beg your pardon, said the mouse, frowning but very politely. Did you speak? Not I, said the Lorry hastily. I thought you did, said the mouse. I proceed. Edwin Morcar and the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria declared for him. Even Stigand and the patriotic Archbishop of Canterbury found it advisable. Found what? Said the duck. Found it, said the mouse. Found it, the mouse replied rather crossly. Of course you know what it means. I know what it means well enough. When I find a thing, said the duck, it's generally a frog or a worm. The question is, what did the Archbishop find? The mouse did not notice this question, but hurriedly went on. Found it advisable to go with Edgar Atheling to meet William and offer him the crown. William's conduct at first was moderate, but the insolence of his Normans. How are you getting on now, my dear? It continued, turning to Alice as it spoke. As wet as ever, said Alice in a melancholy tone. It doesn't seem to dry me at all. In that case, said the dodo solemnly, rising to its feet, I move that the meeting adjourn for the immediate adoption of more energetic remedies. Speak English, said the eaglet. I don't know the meaning of half those long words, and what's more, I don't believe you do either. And the eaglet bent down to hide a smile. Some of the other birds tittered audibly. What I was going to say, said the dodo, in an offended tone, was that the best thing to get astride would be a caucus race. What is a caucus race? Said Alice. Not that she much wanted to know, but the dodo had paused, as if it thought that somebody ought to speak, and no one else seemed inclined to say anything. Why, said the dodo, the best way to explain it is to do it. And as you might like to try the thing yourself some winter day, I will tell you how the dodo managed it. First, it marked out a race course in a sort of a circle. The exact shape doesn't matter, it said. And then all the party were placed along the course, here and there. There was no 1, 2, 3 and away, but they began running when they liked, and left off when they liked, so that it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they had been running half an hour or so, they were quite dry again. The dodo suddenly called out, The race is over. And they all crowded around, panting and asking, But who has won? This question the dodo could not answer without a great deal of thought, and it stood for a long time, with one finger pressed upon his forehead, the position in which you usually see Shakespeare in pictures of him, while the rest waited in silence. At last the dodo said, Everybody has won, and all must have prizes. But who is to give the prizes? Quite a chorus of voices asked. Why, she, of course, said the dodo, pointing to Alice, with one finger, and the whole party at once crowded around her, calling out in a confused way, Prizes, prizes, prizes? Alice had no idea what to do. In despair, she put her hand in her pocket, pulled out a box of comfits. Luckily, the salt water had not gotten into it, and handed them round as prizes. There was exactly one apiece all around. But she must have a prize herself, you know, said the mouse. Of course, the dodo replied very gravely. What else have you got in your pocket? It went on, turning to Alice. Only a thimble, said Alice sadly. Hand it over here, said the dodo. Then they all crowded around her once more, while Dodo solemnly presented the thimble, saying, We beg your acceptance of this elegant thimble. And when it had finished his short speech, they all cheered. Alice thought the whole thing was very absurd, but they all looked so grave that she did not dare to laugh, and as though she could not think of anything to say, she simply bowed and took the thimble, looking as solemn as she could. The next thing was to eat the comfits. This caused some noise and confusion, as large birds complained that they could not taste theirs, and the small ones choked and had to be patted on the back. However, it was over at last, and they sat down again in a ring and begged the mouse to tell them something more. You promised to tell me your history, you know, said Alice. And why is it you hate C and D? She added in a whisper, half afraid that it would be offended again. Oh, mine is a long and sad tale, said the mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. And I think that's where we're going to leave off tonight. That the mouse has a long and sad tale, and there's a beautiful illustration of Alice being presented with her own thimble by the dodo bird. And we'll go back to this, the picture of a mouse reciting the driest thing that he has ever known. Well, reciting the driest thing he has ever known, trying to get them dry, which is, well, I got a kick out of it. So, alright, my shining stars, we leave off there, and we will start next time with this awesome page. And I hope you all have a lovely night, a beautiful night's sleep. May God bless you with a restful sleep, beautiful dreams, and a wonderful Monday. Thank you so much for coming to relax with me in the reading corner tonight. I will see you tomorrow